What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the show. I'm going to get going here in just a moment. Got a few more connections for you. We finally have the connection that we've been looking for, actually. Someone literally just sent it in Telegram not that long ago. Where are you? Let me hunt you down. Thank you for that, Ted. We got a connection between Chris Maggio, the guy being sued by Balenciaga, and Lada Volkova. Let's just jump right into that. Thought I needed more time to prepare my notes. What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the show. Thank you for stopping by to hang out with me here on the MemoryHold channel. We're live on YouTube, Rockfin, DLive, Twitch. All the links are in the description. All right, hit the link tree. That's where you will find me. I want to cover a few different things. Namely, I want to start with the mainstream media coverage of this mess that we're calling the Balenciaga scandal. And of course, we've got the New York Times leveling, equating this Balenciaga scandal to, of course, QAnon. Shit, I forgot to go live on Rockfin. Let's go live on Rockfin. What's up, everybody on Rockfin? Sorry about that. Forgot you have to manually do that. So we've got the New York Times essentially conflating the Balenciaga scandal with, of course, QAnon, right? We're nothing but a bunch of QAnon crazies. That's just what it is. If you expose any type of abusive, degenerate behavior regarding kids, you are a QAnon conspiracy theorist. New York Times. This was published yesterday, I believe, when high fashion and QAnon collide. Now, I covered this article already, but I want to cover it again because, in a way, the New York Times, in their own words, guys, already confirmed that this is not QAnon, right? It's just that they confirmed that a little while ago in their own words, because you see, a few years earlier, it wasn't QAnon. It was actually called the tip of the iceberg. And the gentleman on your screen there, well, it's no coincidence that, just by chance, he happens to pop up in this Balenciaga nonsense. Terry Richardson. There's already been a ton of info about Terry, okay? We already knew about Terry. So a few years ago, the New York Times wants to consider it the tip of the iceberg. But now in a post-pizza world, it's QAnon sense, right? That's every average American individual, every parent right now that has no idea about anything that we do. They themselves might think we're crazy. The average individual is being down-talked by the media. Their concerns not legitimate. That's the New York Times for you. Are we surprised? No, of course not. Of course we're not surprised. And that's a shame. And I also just want to cover like a few other media pieces. The Rolling Stones came out with a piece as well. I haven't read this yet. We're going to do it live together. Why are people convinced Balenciaga is promoting you-know-what? And we're going to read through this. Is this a good article? Is this a shit article? We're going to find out. We're going to find out. So please remember to like, share, and subscribe. I also want to thank everyone that has recently donated to the show. That means a lot to me. Let me actually, you deserve a shout out for sure. I mean, that's going to help the show just a shit ton. Who are you? Who are you? Who are you? I just want to say thank you to Heather. I appreciate you. And also, we got some recent subscribers over on Rockfin. So welcome to Gabriel. Welcome, Jim Jones. Jim Jones back from the dead, hanging out with me on Rockfin. Thank you so much. And Jordan Jones, although it looks like that was a while back. So I appreciate you guys supporting me on the alt platforms. Remember, all the links are below. So I don't have very long today. At 9 o'clock, I'm going to be going on the Fake Mike Real News show. Okay, I'll link that before I get out of here in the chat. So for those of you that want to continue the night, follow me over there after this stream concludes. But until then, we've got important information to cover. Let's just start right off the bat with, once again, when high fashion and QAnon collide. Let's see what the New York Times has to say about all this. 2 new Balenciaga campaigns ignited a firestorm that traveled from the internet to Fox News, fueled by allegations that the brand condoned child exploitation. Now, of course, once again, they got to use that, dog whistle. It's Fox News, right? Right-wing center circles of the internet. Surely that's where it originated from. When, that couldn't be farther from the truth, right? Ever since Demna became artistic director of Balenciaga in 2015, the storied brand has become a lightning rod for controversy, often intentionally. Yeah, because these are a bunch of edge-posting fashionistas, right? And they list remaking IKEA's 99-cent shopping bag as a luxury good, putting heels on Crocs, just these meaningless scandals, right? Dressing Kim Kardashian in a head-to-toe black body stocking for the Met Gala, whatever. The outrage provoked by such moments often seem to be the whole point. And we could see why that might be good for marketing, right? Anger is good for marketing sometimes, frustration, so on. And then, of course, Demna's reputation helps that along. Now, however, the release of 2 new campaigns by Balenciaga, which is owned by Kering, the French luxury conglomerate that also owns brands like Gucci, so on, has taken the public opprobrium to a new level. One campaign featured photos of children clutching handbags that look like teddy bears in bondage gear. So we understand that. Let's go ahead and fast forward. On November 28th, almost 2 weeks after the storm started brewing, and after a series of Instagram apologies that failed to squash it, Balenciaga came out and admitted to a series of grievous errors. So what happened first? According to New York Times, the fallout began November 16th when Balenciaga published this Toy Stories campaign with the bears, right? By Gabriel Galimberti. His photographs featured 6 kids clutching destroyed teddy bear handbags, which had been first seen in the brand's spring 2023 runway show in Paris. We already know this. Now they clear up essentially like the 2 different ad campaigns. You're going to love this shit. The internet is full of trolls. Why did this controversy take off? So what is the internet being filled with trolls have anything to do with legitimate concern over Balenciaga? Well, the New York Times goes on to say, as online criticism of the campaign spread, the story was picked up across right-leaning media outlets, including the New York Post and the primetime Fox News show Tucker. The show has helped to publicize and mainstream QAnon, the internet conspiracy theory that a group of Satan-worshipping elites who run a child sex ring are trying to control our politics and media. Okay. I mean, is that all we, you could just, it's that black and white? We're in a post-nuance world, I guess. You do an audio check. Are we good? Yeah, we're good. Have you ever, or here you have a major international retail brand promoting Kitty P and sex with children, Tucker Carlson told viewers on November 22nd, and not promoting it subtly, but right out in the open. How did Balenciaga respond? We already know how they responded. I'm just trying to get a feel for what the New York Times is how they're referring to us, right? So where did the copy of the Supreme Court decision come from? Who approved its use as a prop? They're all supposed to be fake office documents, Balenciaga said. They turned out to be real legal papers, most likely coming from the filming of a television drama. Again, that doesn't make sense to me. Balenciaga, which had the images in hand for months before the release, called their inclusion of the Supreme Court page unapproved and the result of reckless negligence. Now, one of the individuals, the set designer that was sued, is Nicholas Desjardins, or Desjardins. I don't know. Mr. Desjardins' lawyer, in her statement, said that, quote, there certainly was no malevolent scheme going on. Balenciaga reps were on set during the shoot, overseeing it and handling papers and other props, and Desjardins, as a set designer, was not responsible for image selection from the shoot. Ultimately, image selection would have fallen on the brand, okay, which would be Balenciaga. And then they say, no, they're not suing Gabriel. We know that. What happens next? The long-term repercussions remain to be seen, but already Trade publication Business of Fashion revoked an award it had planned to give to Demna. Remember, I mentioned that the other day, right? They hold the safety of children in the highest regard, they say. Although Kering doesn't break down the annual revenue for Balenciaga, they estimate the, fashion house generates 1.76 billion euros, blah, blah, blah. However, there was a dog bowl with spikes for it. I don't really care about the rest of this. But look how desperate they are to ensure that we don't notice anything. Look how desperate they are to remind you that your opinion is meaningless so long as it falls even remotely close to the QAnon spectrum. And by the way, that's not even remotely close at all, because apparently everything they dislike is QAnon now. And this didn't start with right-leaning outlets, guys. Perhaps the first mainstream outlets that picked it up were more conservative, but this didn't start anywhere in the right-wing sphere at all. I didn't see shit about this until Shoe on Head and others posted about it on Twitter. She's far from like a Nazi. You know what I'm saying? So the idea that conflating this with QAnon delegitimizes the entire thing. And when they talk about our beliefs, right, which they so kindly fill in for us, right? Like, this is what they say we believe in. A group of Satan-worshipping elites who run a child sex ring are trying to control our politics and media. I mean, is that what we believe? Or are you speaking for us? And, once again, articles like this make it so there's really no reason to look into it. Well, why did they believe that? Like, never once is it modeled in such a way. Like, no one just sits back, as they should, and say, why do they actually believe that? That's crazy. But I kind of just want to know, where do they even get it? Like, they're not pulling it out of thin air. Where does it come from? Well, boy, I wonder. I mean, could it be that it just so happens that everyone remotely involved, not everyone, but a lot of the key players in this Balenciaga shit seem to be practicing Satanists, or at least very familiar with it? I mean, we have Malak references on a lot of Volkova's page, the former stylist of Balenciaga, as you can see. Ancient Canaanite god of child sacrifice. Malak is not a common thing that people typically know about. We've got pentagrams, just you name it. This is the same shit that we saw previously in 2016 with the pizza-related subject matter. All the same aesthetic, all the same imagery, the Satanism, the sexual innuendo towards kids, the general degeneracy, right? And it's not like only small people are involved in this. Lada Volkova is not a small person. Not at all. You have Mark Jacobs commenting on this shit. Okay? So let's go back in time. And we're going to cover some new connections, guys. Remember, Balenciaga said they were suing Chris Maggio. We have Nicholas Desjardins here. We have North 6. They're suing too. Nicholas was the set designer, remember? Okay, North 6 being involved with that. Okay. They say they're not suing Gabriel. We know that already. But Chris Maggio has been a character that we just can't really... I couldn't find much on him. So just a source here. One of the Balenciaga Adidas bag images, right, the one resting on CP legal documents, was shot in New York by Chris Maggio. So that's Chris Maggio's role. Innocent until proven guilty, but we just couldn't find many networking connections among Chris and these other people. So for instance, we've connected a lot of Volkova to a lot of different people, not just satanic imagery or pedophilic imagery, but rather to actual predators. Like Gosha Rubchinsky, who's also a major player in this streetwear fashion world. Gosha, well, Adidas is investigating claims against Gosha, and then we have his leaked DMs here of him asking for nudes from underage guys, boys, that he was casting for, right? So this is different. This is different than your average scandal. So when the New York Times says that we're ridiculous for believing a group of Satan-worshipping elites who run a child sex ring are trying to control our politics and media. Well, did I not just show you a few entities right there that seem to be Satanists, or at least, I don't know, seem to be Satanists, and are affiliated with child predators? You see maybe where we get the idea from? Do you see maybe that we're not pulling it out of thin air? So these people, they talk shit, but they never, they're always going to be too scared, too fearful to ever actually address our main concerns. Let's go back to Alefantis appearing on Megyn Kelly back in 2016. All of the questions that were posed to him were the questions that we didn't even ask. And they avoid all the important ones. Is that surprising? No, of course not. I'm just saying that that's the reality. But let's go back in time to a world that predates everything being a satanic conspiracy, QAnon conspiracy, right? Terry Richardson is just the tip of the iceberg. From the New York Times itself. How long ago is this? October 27th, 2017, 1 year after the pizza stuff, and this was right when Q was first getting started, right? So not everything in the world was a QAnon conspiracy theory yet at this point in time. And you'll see who he is in a moment. I'll elaborate. This week, in an apparently defensive move, after a social media outcry, the biggest fashion magazines cut ties with the photographer Terry Richardson over his history of alleged sexual harassment. As a matter of fact, guys, please just give me one moment. I apologize for this. I just forgot to post the link up on Instagram, and I want to make sure that they join us over there. Thank you for hanging out. Please be sure to like, share, and subscribe. This will just take about 15 more seconds. Apologies. All right. Boom, boom, boom. Link is up. All right. Sorry about that, guys. Okay. On Monday, The Telegraph broke the news that James Woolhouse, the Condé Nast International Executive Vice President, had sent a memo to select staff saying that the company would no longer be working with the controversial fashion photographer. Any shoots that have been commissioned or any shoots that have been completed but not yet published should be killed and substituted with other material, the memo said. The next day, Condé Nast International's American sister organization released a statement saying, quote, Condé Nast has nothing planned with Terry Richardson going forward. Sexual harassment of any kind is unacceptable and should not be tolerated. So we covered Terry Richardson years ago, and we covered him in some of my Balenciaga videos, which are all on BitChute, bitchute.com/memoryhold. And they're referring to him as the tip of the iceberg, not just as an individual creep, right? That has sexual related accusations against him, but he's just the tip of the iceberg. Well, I wonder what they mean by that. I mean, that kind of sounds like a QAnon conspiracy theory to me. I mean, we should hold New York Times accountable for publishing misinformation. I mean, what do they mean, tip of the iceberg? Are you saying that this is a conspiracy? Porter, the Net-a-Porter magazine, also said it was no longer working with Mr. Richardson. So basically everyone drops him. Mr. Richardson had already been commissioned to shoot the January cover of Elle and had recently done so, but it's being redone by another photographer. All of these brands are dropping him like a hot potato. Why? It all sounds very responsible, the New York Times goes on. But some industry insiders have begun to question whether fashion's efforts to distance itself from Mr. Richardson is an attempt to band-aid over a deeper crisis. What's the deeper crisis? To make a public example of an offender already accused in order to appear to be taking action, when a much broader and more systemic approach needs to be adopted. Yes. And why would we need a much broader, more systemic approach in order to combat this, quote, deeper crisis that the New York Times says exists within the fashion world? Could we need a much broader and more systemic approach because, well, I don't know, perhaps it's a systemic problem? Could that be it? So, like I said, for those of you that are focusing on nailing down the actual perpetrators, the individuals behind the court documents snuck into the ads, the people behind, specifically behind these shoots, you are missing the wider, more systemic issue. And that's that there's this group of individuals within the fashion world that exhibit the same type of deviant pedophilic behavior. And in fact, take it a step further. Not only seem to dabble in the occult and Satanism, fuck that, whatever, that doesn't even matter. What you have is groups with access a lot of times to models, and underage models are affiliated with, personally, on a personal level, actual predators, right? Which is why we have Loda Volkova not only posting the satanic imagery and constant sexualization of children, but also hanging out with Gosha Rubchinsky that also seems to share the predilection towards kids, right? As evidenced by these leaks, these messages. And that's just, what did they say again? Oh yeah, that's just the tip of the iceberg. So what does the New York Times mean that there's a deeper crisis here and that we need a bigger, more broad systemic approach? For the first time, I'd have to say I agree with them. Because a network this large doesn't go down overnight. It gets dismantled slowly but surely. And remember, this Balenciaga scandal, we're only seeing what you're seeing on the left side of the screen. And that's barely it. You're not seeing the rest of the connections. You get it? Which is why I made this flowchart. I'm not going to say it's the best thing in the world, but it helps me keep all the connections straight. Let's continue reading this crazy conspiracy article, right? I don't know. Sounds like a bunch of bullshit to me. Just kidding. Eddie Campbell, a model who has been featured in ad campaigns, for Chanel and Dior, among others, well, he said, quote, "The reality is that the floodgates are already opening regarding Terry Richardson. He's been blacklisted once before, and it's not that much of an emotional, psychological, or commercial leap, essentially to blacklist him again. The difficulty is addressing the other people, the ones who are celebrated by the fashion industry, the ones who are still at the very heart of it." Yes, the very heart. Where is the very heart, you think? Do you think is the very heart on this map? Do you think the heart is in Balenciaga? Where do you think the organ, the central organ of it all is? Is there a central organ, or is it just so pervasive, so weed-like, that it's just infiltrated every aspect, every nook and cranny of the fashion industry? How is it that we can dig into Balenciaga and get the same names from the pizza-related conspiracy theory, and vice versa? We dig into the pizza-related conspiracy theory, we get the people from Balenciaga. How is it that we dig into the Nexium cult-type stuff and end up with the pizza-related people? Like, it's all connected, right? And when this person says we need to address the other people, the ones who are celebrated and are at the heart of it, well, we can't do that unless we have names. And it wasn't until, the Balenciaga stuff is an example of what happens where we didn't have names, but we were able to find them because they have the same MO. They post the same type of shit, they have the same type of interest, and they hang out with the same group of degenerates. That's how we're able to identify them. Imagine if these people did the right thing and actually just released the lists, right? I understand it's not that easy, but I'm just saying, we can find these people. If you give us a starting point, say Balenciaga. If someone came to us a year ago and said, "I'm an insider whistleblower, I just want to let you know that Balenciaga is sketchy, start looking into it," we would be able to find people from there, just like we found Loda Volkova, Demna, and whatever, and Gosha and all these other people as like the main creeps of it all, right? Just give us something. So like I said, New York Times completely changing their tune just a few years ago, 2017. While there are many creative and morally reputable professionals in the industry, it's also rife with reports of lines being crossed. Well, no shit, huh? The problem is much larger than Terry. Yeah, I'd say, right? And he's become the scapegoat, according to this guy. The quickest means for this industry to absolve itself from any responsibility, said David Bonnevere, the co-founder of DNA Models, which I've come across, so. Katie Grand, the editor of Love magazine and a stylist who works with brands including Marc Jacobs. Oh, speaking of Marc Jacobs, Katie Grand, the editor of Love magazine and a stylist who works with brands including Marc Jacobs. I mean, like, while I have Marc Jacobs here, I mean, Marc Jacobs is the type of dude that seems to really like Loda Volkova, right? Like, for instance, Loda Volkova posted this image and then not only tagged Terry Richardson, but hold on, where is it? Oh, here you go. We have Marc Jacobs commenting hearts on an image posted by one of the guys from Gucci featuring Terry Richardson, the guy this New York Times article is about. The guy, the super creep. You get what I'm saying? So here we have a person, Katie Grants, the editor of Love magazine and a stylist who works with brands including Marc Jacobs. Bad news about Marc Jacobs because he seems to really enjoy this type of shit based on his comments to Lana Volkova's disgusting fucking pictures and based on these hearts, right? I mean, let's think about this. I wouldn't want to be affiliated with anyone that has sexual assault allegations. Marc Jacobs, however, sees an image of a guy that has numerous allegations against him and says, you know what? I'm going to throw some hearts on that picture. So yeah, that's, just speaking of Marc Jacobs, thank you for bringing it up, New York Times. Appreciate it. Totally, he's totally innocent. They're totally innocent. Anyway, she works for Marc Jacobs and Miu Miu. Earlier this week, they reposted a statement from Miss Campbell on Instagram to the same effect, and they wrote in this email, quote, I don't want to sound like I'm defending him, but I thought it was important to put into perspective that every model has a story of a photographer, client, art director, stylist behaving inappropriately. Mr. Richardson was widely pilloried in 2014 when allegations of behavior that included cavorting naked on shoots and forcing his pee-pee onto models surfaced in news media. Just gross shit. He's not denied this behavior, but has always maintained that any activity was consensual. No criminal charges were ever filed. No major new allegations have appeared. But once again, it's this repeated pattern of behavior being exhibited by people like Terry. And then, like I said, it just turns out that the network, social network that Terry is a part of, seems to exhibit the same exact behaviors, is the wider point. So, like I said, you don't want to narrow the scope of Balenciaga by sticking with the people that they're pointing the finger at. We need to expose the wider network of these people. I'm just seeing what else they add in here. After the New York Times published its account detailing allegations of Harvey Weinstein's sexual harassment and abuse, Joanna Coles, the chief content officer of Hearst Magazines, decided to cancel the Ellie cover photographed by Mr. Richardson and reshoot it. Which is funny because, since the publishing of this article, Harvey Weinstein has also gone down for the same degenerate sexual behavior. I want to see if they go deep into anybody else. Please remember to hit the thumbs up for me, guys. I really appreciate your help. We might move on to the next article here. They're not going to name names, of course. I mean, this is an old article anyway. And if we're talking about fashion as a whole, we already covered in the past when we were discussing Ella Emhoff. I told you that Ella Emhoff, stepdaughter of Vice President Kamala Harris, right? She has probably minimal involvement in all this. She's a 23-year-old girl. I'm not saying she's guilty of anything. What I'm saying is she gets fashion gigs despite no modeling experience for Balenciaga, but she also signed a deal with Image Models. Well, Image Models is the same modeling agency a while ago that would repeatedly send young models to Jean-Luc Brunel and Epstein, despite the fact that at least one of those young models, after being assaulted on video camera by Epstein, that young model calls Image Models and begs them to send her home. She's in Paris. She grew up in a small town in the United States. She's all by herself in Paris getting assaulted by these fucking lizards on camera. She begs her modeling agency, please get me the hell out of here. And what do? They basically ignore it and they continue sending models to Epstein and Brunel. And I wonder, right? And that's just one example. Then you have, like I said, elite modeling agency with Gerald Marie. Like I said, we covered this in a previous show. So you want to make sure to catch up on these because we've covered all this before, not only just during a Balenciaga, but years ago too. Former elite models boss accused of rapping models, including Car Otis at age 17. Mickey Rourke's ex-wife is one of 2 women to formally file rap claims against Gerald Murray, who was the president of the European arm of Elite Models for 25 years. Elite Models is a huge modeling agency, guys. The accusations have been presented in legal papers to a prosecutor in Paris, submitted by the same lawyer representing women claiming that they were attacked by Brunel, the modeling agency boss linked to Epstein. So it looks to be the same lawyer handling probably the image models girl is also the one representing Mickey Rourke's ex-wife on the elite modeling agency side of things. And do I need to remind you, these agencies are still around and they're still huge agencies. Oh, but MemoryHold, we've rehabilitated our image. You've rehabilitated your image, but have you rehabilitated your degenerate, deviant, criminal behavior? Right? So you're going to have to dig into all of this yourself. I'm just trying to give you like an overarching sense of how bad the problem is. And do I need to remind you? Hopefully not, but I will, because that's what we do here. I'm queuing something up right now. Do I need you like to remind you where Jeffrey Epstein even came from, right? A lot of you people, which is okay. Like if you're new to all this, you wouldn't know this because you weren't trusted with the information by the mainstream media. When you watch your Filthy Rich series about Jeffrey Epstein, right? When you watch whatever mainstream production about Epstein or anything like this, it's not your fault that you aren't getting the full picture, okay? That's where people like myself and the people in the chat come in. But it's easy to not know how big of a problem this is if you're lacking crucial pieces of information. Like Victoria's Secret founder Leslie Wexner being like the main funder of Epstein. Like,
this really is what a lot of people have been talking about, and this is who is Jeffrey Epstein, who is in his inner circle and has been for the years when he's accused of abusing sexually underage girls. And Leslie Wexner, the retail mogul behind Victoria's Secret, has gotten kind of caught up in this whole debacle. How is he involved here, Leslie Wexner?
So on one hand, he's not involved in this issue at all, but on the other hand, he does have very close ties to Jeff Epstein that it will potentially hurt his business a lot. We have in the story a former CFO of The Limited, which is a precursor company to the L brand, saying that the relationship was not on par, and then on top of that, there was the fact that Les Wexner said that he severed ties with Epstein more than 12 years ago, around the time when he was initially arrested. But
it all goes back and parts of the question: how did Jeff Epstein make that much money?
Yes.
I mean,
right. How did he make that much money? Well, that gets into the blackmail, the intel connections. But Wexner gave him a shit ton of cash, and Wexner, just think of Wexner's Victoria's Secret. Wexner gave him his mansion for like $1, right? So there's a very intimate connection between Wexner and Epstein, and a lot of you already know this. But we need to solidify this, eternalize it, and reiterate it when moments like this happen. Because the New York Times wants to play dumb and say this is all QAnon bullshit. And yet they themselves, just a few years ago, before conspiracy theories became, you know, a crime worthy of the wall, face the wall, you spread misinformation, bucko, right? They themselves said it's the tip of the iceberg. And even if you don't know shit about modeling, you have heard of Victoria's Secret, right? And it gets dark because all you need to do is listen to Epstein victim Maria Farmer and what she has to say about Wexner, aka being held captive on one of his ranches, guarded by like military, ex-military security personnel, right? She said they have dogs on the property. They had gunmen like watching the, just like crazy shit. So yeah, I mean, tip of the iceberg is one way to put it, right?
Say it's at $500 million. How did he make $500 million managing someone's money? And he actually, the reports are, at least Mr. Wexner gave him this really expensive townhouse here.
Yeah. So there was a transfer of the townhouse. It's very blurry if you look at how that happened for zero, and then there was payment. It's, you know, it's unclear, the money trail.
And by the way, not only that, but she said earlier that Wexner lied. Wexner said he severed relationship with Epstein, what, like 12 years before his arrest? Well, the paperwork says differently, right? So they're hiding this purposefully. Now, this sounds obvious to people that know, but to those that are uninitiated, that have no idea about any of this is a mind bender, right? These people are purposefully obscuring their relationships with the most awful, evil people. And what you're seeing with Balenciaga is what happens when only like 5% of that gets exposed the way that it should, when people actually do what's right and they use their eyes, because it really is all out in the open. It's not a fucking joke. All right, let's jump to this new connection, because we've been trying for a while to connect Chris Maggio, the photographer that's being sued by Balenciaga, to anyone, right? I was digging into Maggio, and to be quite honest with you, I didn't see anything that jumped out immediately as being sketchy as hell. For instance, there's a night and day difference between, say, Chris Maggio's profiles and even Nicholas Desjardins' profiles too, the set designer that's also being sued, and say Lada Volkova or Bianca or Rachel, right? That we've already connected, and you'll see them on the map, okay? So I don't want to go out and like mindlessly attack these people until we have more information. However, despite how large the fashion industry is, we do see the repeating group of cast and characters, some of which exhibiting horrific behavior, like we see with Lada Volkova, Gosha, underage nudes from kids, Terry Richardson, so on and so forth, right? But here, look, I'll show you. This is the connection here, and it's a small one, but it just goes to show you that these people often overlap and they often interact, and you have to wonder, do they know? How much do they know? Right? Because if they're okay people, perhaps they wouldn't take kindly to the news that they're working alongside some very evil people, right? Like, that wouldn't be a very good idea. I wouldn't want that. So once again, thank you, Ted. I appreciate you. I'm just pulling up this image right now, guys. Please bear with me. Sorry, my computer's been struggling the last couple days. We're almost there, guys. We're almost there. Please remember to hit the thumbs up for your boy. It helps me very much. We got a few minutes left before I head over to Fake Mike Real News and do the show with them. I'll drop the link in the chat. We'll continue discussing this crazy stuff. Image is just booting up. A few more seconds, guys. Apologies. As I said, this is a small connection, but, you know, a connection nonetheless that I just want you to be aware about. All of this is publicly available. We're not making any conclusions. We're just saying, you know, that there's certain connections out there in the world. My computer should not be this slow. Here we go. I think I got it here. Yeah, I think this is it. Yeah, okay, this is it, guys. Check it. So Chris Maggio, remember, he's being sued by Balenciaga. Well, models.com has been an infinitely productive resource in this Balenciaga saga, right? This scandal. Because if you register for the website for free, you can access the entire portfolios of a lot of the people that are relevant. Say, Lada Volkova, Chris Maggio, Nicholas Desjardins, Marina Abramovic, right? So you can go and retrace their steps, essentially. So on models.com, here we have a collaboration between Lada Volkova with the super shady Instagram, the woman that's uploading all the satanic imagery, while also personal friends with an actual PEDO, dosha. Chris Maggio, the guy being sued by Balenciaga for one of those shoots, is here collaborating with Lada Volkova, okay? As you can see, credits for this picture, Chris Maggio, photographer, Lada Volkova, fashion editor and stylist, and then you've got the others that were involved, Sylvia Farrago, Ramona Eschbach, and Inge Grognerd. So, like I said, this is a fairly, not a huge connection, but this just shows that these people consistently overlap with one another. Now, someone that wants to shoot me down here would say, dude, Chris Maggio has nothing to do with Lada Volkova being hired. Lada Volkova has nothing to do with Chris Maggio being hired. It's not indicative of them being personal friends. It's not Totally get that. Totally get that. All I'm trying to do is trace a social network list of connections between all of these people to see how frequently these groups of individuals interact with one another, right? So, interesting connection. Hopefully we can build further on that from there. I did at least want to get that out. It's 8:40. Let's see what else I can fit in before I have to head over to the other channel to hang out with the bros. Give me one moment. I have a bunch of notes here. I do appreciate you all sticking around, hanging out with me tonight. Rolling Stone also jumped in on the mix. We have a Rolling Stone article that I haven't had a chance to read yet. I wanted to do it live with you guys here. I'm not sure if we have time. Why are people convinced Balenciaga is promoting PEDO? Well, here's the thing. Like, you wouldn't be asking these questions if you just listened to us, right? It's all quite obvious. Balenciaga has taken responsibility. You know, there's probably going to do the whole summary thing here. I just want to see how they discuss people like you and I. Thousands of people said the gift campaign was inappropriate. It promoted child, you know, sexual, so on and so forth. People are destroying Balenciaga merchandise in protest. I saw that started just recently. Here we go. But a larger portion of the outrage can be attributed to a major push from far-right influencers like Candace Owens, Andrew Tate, Kanye West, who have cited the Balenciaga blunder as evidence that the Hollywood elite is actively promoting child you-know-what and PEDO, so on and so forth. There it is. Of course. It's always the far right. It's always the far right. You know, none of this means anything. None of this means anything. It's just a bunch of far-right riffraff. I wish to God one of these people would come onto the show and actively debunk any of this. Any of this. Because notice, I'm not drawing conclusions from it. This pizza-related stuff, this Balenciaga-related stuff, it's not about coming to conclusions, which they say we are. We're not. It's about asking questions. Why are the same people repeatedly connected to one another over time and across different agencies and companies? Why do they exhibit the same type of behavior, the same type of interest in the occult, the same type of interest in Satanism? Why? Why? Is it all coincidence? That's what they'd love to say, right? It's got to be all coincidence. Otherwise, we wouldn't be far-right QAnon conspiracy theorists. Some users even claimed the rapper chose to leave his Balenciaga deal, completely ignoring clear documentation and reporting that the brand actually removed West for, you know what? Just crazy shit, man. So that's Rolling Stone, everybody. If you expected quality reporting from them, you're actually crazy. Let me see if there's anything else. I thought I'd have more time to cover this. I did want to talk about this woman. I've been seeing a lot of like people sending me images about Amanda. Take a look. Amanda Ilyash, English photographer, poet, filmmaker. She's associated with the bigwigs, right? All these different Interestingly, her current London residence and studio is Cheyne Walk, where her art collection is on display, including pieces by Michael Ayrton, Oriel Harwood, A White Elephant by Mark Quinn, and Jake and Dinos Chapman. So Jake and Dinos Chapman are the guys that make those sculptures of kids in the most disgusting positions ever. They'll put like genitalia on their face. Often the kids are naked. So if they're not directly involved with the people sexualizing kids, they collect the art of the people that are artistically expressing themselves through sexualizing kids, right? Well, anyway, you want to see some occult knowledge, go to this woman's Instagram, dude. Because believe it or not, it's still up. So I'm not saying this is like, I forget her exact relationship to Balenciaga. It's just that she's a big name in the whole fashion world, and she overlaps heavily with a lot of these people, you know? I don't know if any of their images are like accessible right away, but I'll just see. For the last few minutes, I want you to see at least a few of them. Like I said, these people exhibit like an above average amount of knowledge when it comes to the occult, right? Like these aren't casual studies of the occult or Satan, whatever the word you want to call it, right? These aren't casual dabblers. These people know what they're talking about. Give me one moment. I want to actually pull up like the actual images I'm looking for. Maybe it's actually on, hold on. Fuck, man. I always lose my spot here. Just give me one moment. Too much information. My head has been spinning recently. I said it before, but... I saved a post for later. Oh, I guess not. All right, we're going to check one more thing before we get out of here. Damn, this is all going to hell. There it is, okay. Because I've just been being sent a ton of shit on Instagram, and a lot of it was from her. It's like I can't save everything. And if I do save it, I often lose track of like, okay, here we go, here we go. Got it. You just can't make this shit up, dude. You can't make it up. All right. I'm trying to find the best way to do this because I don't want to just blow up, All right, so the first connection, you know, with this woman is she's close, or at least friends, with Marina Abramovic, right? Just thought that's kind of interesting. Vampire repost, Marina Abramovic. Is she? Is she not? Hashtag witchcraft. Hashtag witchcraft. It's fitting, right? Just fitting. And of course, we know that Marina connects us to the Pizza Gang directly. Continuing with the connections, she has some telling.
I was younger, and then once I understood what it was, man. What you see it?
Not that one. You guys will like this one too. Here she is. Do you guys recognize the significance of this? And isn't it funny that like her description is literally shh, right? She knows something that we don't know, right? Oh, wow. Look at this. Do you guys recognize this? 72 weeks ago, right? Come on, man. Come on. Like, you can't get more blatant than that. We're going one by one. And it's not even like she only hung out with Marina once, right? It's like, here she is again with her. Credit goes to Amber on this. Thank you for sending that to me. And, you know, there's more. A lot more. Here's this. at @ARightBag joins the Illuminati for the weekend. Hashtag Illuminati. And she tags Saint Laurent, right? So I get it, you know, maybe tongue in cheek, whatever. But the point is that, like, look, someone that isn't a part of the Illuminati that like posts something like this, you might see maybe one post, right? And you'll say, oh, okay, just maybe a coincidence. That's actually not like nefarious or malicious or malevolent. It's just, okay, he just happened to post like some imagery, right? But no, this is like calculated occultist posting over a long span of time by a woman that's, you know, fairly connected to all of these entities. Just doing a last check to see what else we got going on here. God, there's just so much. I'll be doing these in dribs and drabs, I guess, you know, for as long as possible, because it never ends. As for the rest of my notes, I'm going to save that. Let me go ahead and link you to Fake Mike Real News channel. So for those of you that want to continue, I don't know what we're going to be discussing. I imagine Balenciaga will play some type of role in our discussion, though. So I'm going to share this channel with you. I want you to go help the boy out. He's a friend of the show. Fake Mike Real News. Going to drop that in the chat right now. I do appreciate all of you hanging out with me tonight. Before you get out of here, hit the thumbs up for me. Share this out to your feed. And be sure to join us over in a few minutes. He said sometime around 9 o'clock, so about 10 minutes from now, give or take. I will be live with Will over at Fake Mike Real News. I do appreciate your continued support. Sorry I couldn't get more detailed today. I'm doing what I can. A little overwhelmed with all the information. Tons of messages coming from all directions with amazing information. You know what I mean? Like, a lot of times I get like a lot of fluff in the messages. No offense. I appreciate every message. Sometimes it's a lot of fluff. This time, consistently good findings across the board in nearly every message. And there's no way I can retain all this fucking information. It's wild. Okay, so I just wanted to demonstrate that the fashion industry as a whole is what needs to be looked at. Just like the New York Times said before all of this became a QAnon conspiracy theory. This is symptoms of a deeper crisis at work. And when things like Balenciaga are exposed, we are peeling back that layer and granted access to a few of the people creating this deeper crisis, deeply embedded within the fashion world. And they'll stay deeply embedded within the fashion world, unless, of course, we learn to actually ask some questions and we stop being afraid of being called a conspiracy theorist or whatever it is. All right, guys, I do appreciate you hanging out with me tonight. Hit the thumbs up on your way out. I'll see you in a few minutes. Please come join us. Fake Mike Real News on YouTube in a couple minutes. It's going to be good stuff. I'll see you guys later.